Kay, I'm so happy to be here today, and it's a special day because your book's being launched, and you worked really hard on this book. But I would like to introduce you to the audience. So, who's Kay Formanek?
So I am the author of this book, and I am someone who grew up in South Africa, who has lived in countries around the world, who has worked in diversity for the last 30 years in 50 different organizations, and who's really passionate about the subject.
So you must have seen diversity changing, because 30 years ago it was a totally different topic than it is nowadays, because nowadays it's really hot.
Absolutely. You know, if you look at the last 3 years, there has been such a shift in diversity. There has been a grass movement, Black Lives Matter, Me Too, the younger generations clamoring for more diversity and leadership. So it is a critical topic. Much is happening.
Yeah, a critical topic, but it's also a topic that comes from your heart. It's a kind of calling for you. So how come you chose this topic, diversity?
Diversity is a calling. I grew up in South Africa during apartheid. That is legalized discrimination. I saw the anguish that it caused people. I'm the sibling to someone, my sister, who was born with a seen disability. I saw how that impacts someone's life. And myself, as a partner of a professional services organization, I felt what it means to be in an underrepresented group at the boardroom.
Talking about the boardroom, because you really address your book also to the leaders, and you want to change the thought of leadership. What are the tools you're handing out?
Wonderful. Indeed, what I'm hoping to inspire leaders is to be more strategic, courageous about diversity. This is not something that is a checkbox that can be given to another area in the organization to take accountability. Leaders need to lead diversity, and the tools that I give them is, how do you navigate that journey? What is diversity? What are the elements that cause diversity performance to occur? And how do I build the capabilities that allow me to deliver on diversity?
So what is the shift you want to instigate with this book?
What I would like to do is that diversity is seen as the art and the science. And what I'm talking about is, why is it that leaders are not leading diversity in the same way they would be leading their organization, strategically, deliberately, with clear milestones, where they measure, where they hold people accountable for diversity. This is the shift that we need to see in order to deliver on the requirements.
But if I'm not a leader and I read your book, what is your intention to a person that's not a leader?
Lovely question. It is about people understanding that diversity is not about others. Diversity begins with yourself. It is leaning in. It is taking responsibility. It's when you see a discrimination or a bias that you have the courage to say something about it. It is understanding that diversity will shift in terms of performance when everyone plays their role. What I see is that many people are not confident about diversity, and they need to have clear tools and frameworks to advance that journey. And that's what I try to do. Through the book, they are able to identify, how do I develop a strategic narrative for diversity? They are able to assess their diversity gap. They're able to assess their diversity capability gap, and they are able to define that roadmap to close that journey. And all of these tools and frameworks are underpinned by the latest research and the experience that I have seen in these various organizations.
I sense nowadays that in some quarters there's a backlash about the topic diversity. It's really complex and a sensitive matter. Could you explain more about this?
I think you put your finger on something very important. Indeed, there is a growing movement that is demanding more diversity, and yet there are some quarters who are saying, what does this mean to me? Maybe I lose my privileges. Perhaps this is not going to be very good for me. And what is so important is that if you handle this in a professional, clear way, there's a clear strategic narrative, that people feel more courage and they find a place for themselves in that journey.
How did you do your research?
Well, it is drawn from experience and actually collaborating with some of the best business schools worldwide and with diversity and inclusion practitioners. And the whole time I'm looking at efficacy. And what I mean about it is, have we proven that with an action or an intervention that you get the right result? And the fact is that we put 8 billion or more into diversity training and it's not moving the needle.
No.
So we need to be more precise about the interventions.
Okay, this introduction is already fascinating. We talked about the why, the what, and the how of diversity. But let's continue our journey and plunge into the chapters of this book and start this new adventure.
Wonderful. Excited to do that.